Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are through another hump day, and we are moving forward with the week. I apologize for my absence yesterday. I had a doctor's appointment and wasn't able to stay the whole day. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about what we've started to do over yesterday and today, which is allowing ourselves to really become quality readers. And what I mean by that is, as we're going through the book right now, you guys are writing down all of the characters, the plot points, the conflicts. You're making predictions. You're identifying literary elements. You're making the attempt to understand those literary elements. You're making an attempt to connect using who dat to these characters that you're meeting. And you're also, not just through, hopefully, our fire starters, but also on your own, you are able to take sentences that are inside the story and use them to make you think, to make you connect, to really attempt to be a quality reader so that you can be changed forever by words on a page when the author's not even there to talk to you. Yesterday you had a question that forced you to do a little bit of predicting and examining how we look at life. Today, some classes, because we're having such good discussion, didn't even get to start reading any of the book because we had such great discussion going using a quote from the book that wound up being your fire starter. It was, if people expect you to be brave, sometimes you pretend that you are, even when you're frightened down to your very bones. That was on page 14 in the old text. It might be a little bit of a different page number for you if you have one of the newer books. But in any case, Sal says that as a result of somebody seeing her pick up a spider and put it out on the windowsill. And she said, I'm brave? I don't feel brave. And then she comes out with that thought. If people expect you to be brave, sometimes you pretend that you are, even when you're frightened down to your very bones. And I asked you this question. I had you examine these questions. Is there a difference between being brave and acting bravely? And then I asked you to explain. Most of you said there was a difference. And only a few of you were kind of towards the camp where I kind of live. Now remember, these are opinion questions, which means it forces you to examine what you believe, given the information that you have. Now, I've had a lot more time to think about this question because I created the question. So, in my mind at first I was like, well, sure, there's probably a difference between being brave and acting bravely. But then I got to thinking a little bit harder. And I said, you know what? If I'm stuck in a burning building and I can't get out, I'm trapped, and somebody rushes into that burning building and drags me out to safety, I really don't care if they were acting bravely or they're really brave at all times. Because guess what? I'm alive. Good news. Right? Unless you hate me. But hopefully you don't. So, I asked the question then, does doing something that brave make somebody brave when they weren't in the past? And we kind of arrived at the fact that it tends to be kind of a situational thing for us. That act of taking a spider and putting it on the windowsill seemed like nothing. But then you add to the mix, and I added this in our conversation, what if I were deathly afraid of spiders? And I picked up that spider, and I put it on the windowsill. You all agreed that that would be brave, because I was trying to conquer a fear. And so we got to this point in our discussion where we said, you know what? It depends. It depends if there's a difference. I brought up the fact that people like firefighters, first responders, police officers, soldiers, whenever they're interviewed after having done something really what we perceive as heroic, they usually just say, just doing my job. Well, yeah, you're just doing your job. They're like, well, I'm not brave, I'm just doing my job. Yeah, you're just doing your job, but your job requires a lot of bravery. Because if there's one thing I know about me, is that if I'm standing here, I don't want fire to be here. I just know that about myself. That's the thing I know about myself. Is that fire here, no good. Same thing. if I hear gunfire over there, my first instinct isn't to go, I'm going to go help. My first instinct is to go, help! And hide. I don't have that gene that these people seem to have. Now, that's not to say that if somebody broke into the school and were attempting to hurt people, I think I might try to go disarm them. Or if they came into my classroom, I might try to stop them physically. But I'm not going to go looking like a crime fighter or a vigilante or a superhero. I'm not going to go looking for trouble to try to stop it. And so we got to the point where we said, gosh, it really depends, doesn't it? This is what a good book does. It forces you to think outside the box and examine who you really are. So I actually followed it up with this question. Do we sometimes act a certain way even when we don't think it's who we really are? And I said, what makes us do that? Now, we kind of got into the whole popularity conversation from there. And I get kind of worried about you guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I get a little bit worried about you guys because I hear really awful things that you say to each other. And I see really awful behavior in classrooms. And I see people treating their education like it doesn't matter. And I think those are sometimes and often the most popular people. The ones who don't care about their work. The ones who disrespect their teachers. The ones who disrespect other people. The ones who swear. The ones who, all of these things, do all of these really nasty things to one another and seem to care only about themselves. They tend to be the popular ones. And what we examined as we were talking about it is we said, what makes us do that? Well, we kind of want to be popular. We want to be accepted. And we want to be one of the popular kids. But wait a minute. If I asked you, is it cool to be a jerk? And is it cool to be disrespectful? Is it cool to hurt other people intentionally, either physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, verbally, whatever? Every single person, including the people who do that, would say, no, that's not cool. Guys, then why does it make you popular for doing those things? Huh? I asked you the question as a follow-up because we had a really good discussion about this. And like I said, some classes didn't even get past this discussion. But that's great. Don't you see that that means that we're actually connecting? And we're making an attempt to understand not only the book but ourselves? And that that was the author's purpose in the first place? And that was my purpose as your teacher in the first place? This is great stuff. People are like, Mr. Kaz, we wasted the whole day. No, we didn't. We were talking about meaningful things. And I sort of left you with this question. How would the world change? How different would the world look if you acted the way you knew you should and the way that you really wanted to be perceived by other people? And I said, you know, sometimes when people ask people about other people, they say, hey, what do you think about this person? If that person can say, oh, he's a beep, she's a beep, then I think you're doing something wrong. See, because we should be treating everybody the way we'd like to be treated. It's actually called the Golden Rule. It goes back thousands and thousands of years. It's one of the first things that they teach in almost every single religion, is that you treat others the way you want to be treated. And heck, even people who don't believe in any religion whatsoever tend to believe in that rule. You treat people the way you want to be treated and the way that you ought to be able to be treated. If you look at yourself, and you look at your actions and the words you say, ask yourself this. If I went home and told my mom or told my dad or told somebody I really care about, hey, guess what I did today? I called so-and-so a dirty, rotten... That's not something that I would go and be proud of. And I would say that to somebody that I cared about to try to impress them. So then, why are we using those things to try to impress other people when we're not at home? See, your character is who you are at all times. If you say, well, that's not me, I just act like that sometimes. Well, then guess what? It looks to everybody else like that's just you. And sometimes when we act a certain way, we become that. Connection. Connection. Author's purpose. Guys, this is what literature is all about. This is why you can sit down with a book and have a conversation with an author who's not even there and have it change your life. I hope that some of the discussion we had today might contribute to you changing your life. And it's not because I'm super cool or I'm awesome or I came up with this great question. It's right there in the book. And a good reader examines these things, doesn't let sentences like, if people expect you to be a certain way, you are that. You don't just let that slip as a good reader. You take that and you say, I wonder if I do that. Because that's making a connection. In your attempt to understand the situation of the character, you are connecting it to yourself, and that's what the author wanted in the first place. That's the author's purpose. Being a good reader. Guys, don't forget, I know I'm going to write it down there, but don't forget that your homework is to read through chapter 6, which means up to chapter 7, and fill in all of your organizers that you can. Every single box, remember. Yes, even vocabulary. Yes, even who dat. I am providing vocabulary below this post. Suggested. You don't have to take the suggestion. Also, don't forget Words of the Week are due Friday. I know that I'm writing it down below, but I want to remind you. I also want to remind you that I have canceled this week's vocab quiz because I was out yesterday. I'm going to be out tomorrow, and we had sort of a weird, discussy kind of day today rather than actual classroom time as we typically would. So I might be postponing Friday's Writer-Reader Workshop Day. So with all of that taken into account, I'm scrapping the vocab quiz for Friday, but I do still expect you to have Words of the Week number 4 done by the end of the week. That's it for today, guys. Some great discussions are happening. Let's keep that up. And it doesn't just have to come from me. You can be doing all of this stuff as you're reading at all times. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, Mr. Cat, does that mean that... Because there are some things in the book that I kind of let slip by because I want you to recognize them. Raise your hand. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them. Literature can change your life. But you have to be actively reading in order for that to happen. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.